This reshuffle is about Australians getting the most out of Labor. The easy choice to make is to not make many changes and just keep things as they are. I'm absolutely determined, and events this year have reinforced my view that I will do the right thing, not necessarily the easy thing. This is the strongest team to form an Albanese Labor government. I'm interested, not so much in being in opposition on what titles people have. I'm interested in getting rid of the one word that's the bad word from the titles of the people I'm about to inform you. And that one really bad word is shadow. I want to remove that, and I want to move us to the corridor down the end of this building. So this is a strong team. The reshuffle is all about putting jobs at the centre of what we will do. And that's why Mr Marles, my deputy, is taking on a job leading Labor's focus out of the national recovery that will be required out of this pandemic. In the new portfolio, Richard will be Shadow Minister for National Reconstruction, Employment, Skills and Small Business, as well as taking on Shadow Minister for Science. Richard's singular focus as Deputy Leader will be to take the process that he's had leading Labor's policy agenda for the draft platform for the National Conference onto the policy focus between now and the next election. How do we deliver good, secure jobs that Australians want and they need? His short title is the Shadow Minister for Jobs, Jobs and More Jobs. I want a future made in Australia. As we look to the future, we must look at new ways to give our traditional and emerging industries in Australia an edge in the global economy. There's no one better to lead that than Ed Husic. Ed's been engaged not just since he's been here in Parliament, but prior in issues like new technology, innovation. He will be an outstanding contributor as our newest member of the Shadow Cabinet. And Richard and Ed will work very closely with Jim Chalmers, who will continue to lead the economic debate on behalf of our team. Working with Katie Gallagher as the Shadow Finance Minister, Stephen Jones, who adds superannuation to his title to reflect what the government has done, and most of our changes do reflect the existing government portfolios so that there's a consistency there. And I think that is something that will be a positive. I'm very pleased that we had someone ready-made to step into Richard's shoes as the Shadow Minister for Defence in Brendan O'Connor. Brendan O'Connor will be outstanding. He's already in government, sat on the National Security Committee for a number of years. He's held Home Affairs and immigration portfolios. He's concerned also about jobs and Australian industry, and of course the issue of the submarines and other issues that he and Matt Keogh will tackle are going to be important in terms of holding the government to account. Christina KENEALLY, our Deputy Leader in the Senate, will take on additional responsibility as Shadow Minister for Government Accountability. Christina KENEALLY is someone of courage. She's someone who calls things as they are, and she'll be holding the government to account across the board for the rorts, the abusive process, for the fact that we have a government that thinks that taxpayers' money is the same as Liberal Party and National Party money. And she'll join with Pat Conroy, assisting her as a House of Reps member, to really hold the government to account will be their job. Labor has always regarded climate change and energy as a huge opportunity for the economy and for job creation. And that's why Chris Bowen, as a former Treasurer, will bring very much that economic perspective. I've said consistently, ever since I had the portfolio myself under Kim Beazley as leader, that climate change action is good for jobs, it's good for reducing emissions, as well as good for reducing power prices. It's an economic portfolio, and Chris Bowen will bring his perspective to that portfolio, and as a supporter of strong action on climate change, and he'll continue to be supported by Pat Conroy. Healthcare in Australia has been one of Labor's proudest achievements. Medicare, universal access to healthcare, is so critical, and one that I got to experience the benefits of a few weeks ago. During the 2020 pandemic, we've seen Australia's health system and those who work in it protect Australia and Australians. The role of our health system and our aged care system have never been more important, and we know we have an Aged Care Royal Commission. Mark Butler has previously served in the government as a Minister for Mental Health and Ageing. He's the only parliamentarian I know of who's written a book about ageing and aged care, and he will do an outstanding job, and he will be assisted by Claire O'Neill, who will serve as Shadow Minister for Senior Australians and Aged Care Services. During COVID-19, Australia's agricultural sector has kept Australians in jobs, food on our tables, and kept our economy afloat through exports. Labor will have a champion for agriculture in Julie Collins. Particularly, Julie is from the state where agriculture is a higher proportion of their state GDP than any other state, Tasmania. And Julie will bring her experience and her advocacy to that state and around the country. Putting Australia's resources sector at the heart of the trade portfolio is why I'm giving Madeleine King the task of trade and resources. It makes sense to do that. Madeleine King, as a proud West Australian, also knows the importance of the sector to our economy. Madeleine will be assisted by her East Coast colleague, Murray Watt, in Queensland, where the resources sector, of course, also plays an absolutely critical role. And to ensure that Western Australia continues to have a very strong voice on my front bench, I've asked Patrick Gorman to serve as the Shadow Assistant Minister for Western Australia. The fact is, Australians have pulled together through the pandemic, and as a result of that, we have the challenge, though, of how we come out of it. The focus has got to be on being the best that we can. How we're not just satisfied with going back to the way that things were, how we recognise that we need to build our economy, build jobs, build fairness and equity, and that we take the spirit that's been shown during this crisis, the spirit of Australians looking after each other, the spirit of Australians making sacrifices in the national interest, the spirit of ensuring that we can be proud of Australia's performance in the world, that we take those principles forward. The fact is, prior to the pandemic, there were real problems in the economy, as Jim and the economic team pointed out. Growth was sluggish, living standards were flatlining, wages were stagnant, national debt had doubled, productivity was actually going backwards. Right now, insecure work and underemployment are at record highs. We have more than 2 million Australians who are either out of a job or can't get the amount of work that they need. Australians deserve a government who will show the strength that they themselves have shown over the past 12 months. I intend to provide that leadership with this outstanding team, the old back versus the government team, every day. And one of the things that I've done is put head-to-head opposition portfolios in the same areas in which the government has its portfolios, I think, to sharpen that focus going into the future.